Hugh, your character is unhinged, is a word I'd use to describe him. Is it quite fun to play roles like that? And how do you go about connecting with a character like this? I assume as an actor, you always want to try and find a routine. Is it quite hard when they're a bit evil like this?
Well, you've used two words that I simply don't recognise in the character: unhinged and evil. I think you've misinterpreted him entirely. He's a perfectly rational, normal person who's just trying to do the right thing. So I think that's the only way that an actor can approach a character, is to see their own truth. These days we're all about speaking our own truth, whether it's a complete load of bollocks or not. So I'm speaking my own truth as a character, in that he's a good guy who's just trying to keep his house tidy.
Is that always? Do you always feel like, just as a rule of thumb, you have to maybe not like the character, but understand and empathise with the character?
I think you do. Yeah, I think even if they are, twisted or bonkers or whatever, which Hector Blake isn't, I think you do need to find a way in, to at least, if not sympathise, then at least find something within you that reflects the personality. Yeah.
In terms of finding that sort of way in here, I mean, can you relate in terms of being in the public eye? I know when he first gets that call made to the police about him, he sort of says, "I'm a judge. I'm always kind of a target." Is that somewhere where there's a kind of an entry point, that kind of living in the kind of public eye to some degree?
No, I wouldn't say that so much, but I recognise that in pillars of the establishment, like people who wear a uniform, be it a judge's robe or a police uniform or a doctor's white coat, that gives him a certain cachet in society. And we, as members of the public, respect the uniform or anticipate certain behaviour from the uniform, and so that can give people a certain shield. And certainly in his case, he spent many years as a centre of the establishment, and therefore why wouldn't he be believed or trusted or allowed to get on with his own simple, humble life?
Did you do much research into the lives of kind of High Court judges? I know it's obviously quite a small group of people. Were you able to meet any of them or learn more about them?
No, I didn't feel that was I wasn't, because there's not exactly a lot of time spent in court. But I was interested. Babak was talking about him being retired and how this character had given up, and I said, well, why? And let's interrogate that a bit. And he pulled out an article about a judge some years ago who just said, I got a bit bored. So we stuck that line in, because I thought it was quite interesting that you get bored as a judge, as you would, as people do in any walk of life. But you sort of somehow, I always envisaged judges to be, people of such sort of keenness to serve and do the right thing by the legal system. They just say, I just got a bit bored of the law and decided to pull out and do something else. In his case, fiddle around in pottery was quite interesting, I thought. But then, as Babak said, it was true to life. It was true. It was based on a true, or that element was based on a true character.
And how was it working with Babak? I just met him now. He's such a lovely person. I know a lot of people are very nice, but you can just see someone being a really good, earnest person. Yeah. He really was. I mean, it help so much when you're on a set and the person kind of at the helm of the whole thing is so accessible as he is.
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, because of as we were talking about putting the film together, it was during various bits of lockdown, so everything was on Zoom, so inevitably it was that two-dimensional relationship for quite a long time, and then finally we got to meet, and as you say, he's a terribly approachable and impishly enjoyable character, and so I got more and more nervous, because the more I got to like him, I thought, well, where the hell did this script come from? From this dark and twisted mind.
Because, you play, looking sort of some of your characters, people have said this is a bit of a departure, but I was just wondering about, because I saw you in The Corrupted as well, which I think was a character that also had sort of similarities. Do you always approach all characters, regardless of where they come from or what they're like, in a very similar way? Is the way you approach it, is your approach the same?
It varies. It depends. If you're trying to do something, if you're trying to do someone who's a historical character or a living person, then obviously there are certain aspects of the character that if you're trying to do not an impression but an approximation to the spirit of the person, then that's a slightly different route. But in a fictional character like this, or indeed in The Corrupted, then you're thinking, well, which part of me can I latch onto that I know will make me feel comfortable performing it, and therefore hopefully be more convincing on screen. And if you can get the bedrock of it right, then if you go off into different areas of the psyche or the imagination, then hopefully the audience will come with you.
Yeah, it must be sort of a job. Is it still kind of constantly kind of excite you? Because I guess you're constantly kind of putting on different hats. I know that is literally acting, but it must be it's such a fun way to kind of make a living in that.
Living.
Yeah, just always. You must feel like you must have quite a good understanding of people's psyche in a way, because you're constantly trying to understand such a different variety of people.
yes, I think to some that's part of the job, isn't it? And yeah, I suppose ever since since a kid who enjoyed watching plays and being in plays, you're constantly observing other people's behaviour and trying to read a room or read a character. And so in a well-written script, it's really fun to dive into different elements of the psyche and play around in the dressing up box, so to speak. Yeah.
I mean, your character sort of sits back in the evenings and watches Rick and Morty, which I've quite liked. I just wondered, what's your kind of go-to watch over dinner show?
Oh, well, I mean, surely, it's the obvious one is Below Deck. I mean, that's absolutely crucial viewing. I think I'm now on season 8 or 9, I can't remember, we're now in the Mediterranean again, so I feel very reassured. So, yeah, I'm up for as much trash telly as possible. One of my favourite shows in lockdown was My Brilliant Friend, which is an adaptation of 4 novels, about 2 girls growing up in Italy in the 50s and 60s. It's one of the finest pieces of TV I've ever watched in terms of narrative and production value. So I've got quite a broad eclectic mix for my laptop supper.
Yeah, I was going to ask too. I mean, it's very early days. I'm not expecting any actual news about it. But in terms of Paddington 3, of course, it's been so successful, and I mean, everyone is really excited about the third one. I just wondered, sort of like, how are you looking forward to kind of getting back into it, and sort of, because I mean, it feels like from an audience perspective, everyone just loves being a part of that world. So is it something that is quite exciting that it's returning for a third instalment?
Well, it's a wonderful franchise, if you want to call it that, to have been part of, and to have had 2 really successful films was great, and then to see Paddington, having tea with the Queen, the Jubilee was very, very special for everyone who's been involved in the whole project. There's talk of a third one. There was talk of it happening this year, and then for all sorts of reasons it didn't happen. So I'm hopeful that it might happen next year, but a lot of planets have still got to align for that to take place.
I mean, I just wanted to know about the second one. It is one of those films that it is a special movie, and people absolutely love that film. Even though you're a part of it, and even I'm sure you're incredibly proud of it, does it still surprise you at just how sort of, I don't know, that film seems to have sort of taken its place in this kind of British cinema history, and it's kind of really, I don't know, it's been so well received. People adore that film, which I'm one of. I just wondered if it still came as a bit of a surprise to the whole collective.
Certainly to me, it was such a rigorous, Paul King is such a rigorous director, and he demands has such attention to detail, and will nag away at something until he's got it right. And several times on both films, he'd revisit a scene because he wasn't satisfied. And I know that he really worked like a terrier with a bone until he got that second film to his satisfaction. And it's just a great example of a really fine mind, a fine talented visual artist and scriptwriter and director all coming together with a great production team. So yeah, I'm immensely proud of being something that's being part of something that's so popular.
And Paul's lovely as well. You just keep working with lovely people.
Yeah, well, yes, that's the best way to work.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you so much.
Cheers, thank you. Nice to see you again.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yeah.
Nice.
Hey,